and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at a build for the ArcStaff Hunter that's about just getting the super as fast as possible. We're pretty much going all in on the super region, and everything that we have pretty much just helps us to get the super faster. Now the only two things that you're going to need for this build to work is going to be the Outbreak Perfected and also the RAIDEN FLUX. As long as you have those two things, you're pretty much going to be able to make this build work. But let's not waste any more time, let's get into it, and first let's get into our exotics. So first of all, starting with the exotic weapon, we're gonna have the Outbreak Perfected, and the whole reason that we're using this is just because the insane amount of just super energy it can generate. It may actually be the best super regen exotic aside from like the bad juju, but the great thing about this weapon and the way that it makes super energy is that it just does it with damage, not with kills like the bad juju. So if you're doing something a little bit harder like a GM, you can just quickly charge this up with like shooting a champion without ever having to get a kill, just by doing damage. And that's what I really love about the Outbreak. That's going to give us a quick and easy way to get our super back faster, even if we can't get it with the other ways that we're going to be able to get our super back with this build. This definitely just makes it a little bit more friendly towards those end game activities. And for our piece of armor, of course we are going to be on the RAIDEN FLUX. It's kind of like the whole point of the build. We want to spam our ArcStaff so we can really take advantage of the RAIDEN FLUX for that extra damage, and also for the increased time that we're in the super. The RAIDEN FLUX really is amazing now. I've been pretty much using it like all week, and it does some just nasty damage against some of the champions. It is ridiculous the amount of damage you can put out against champions. It's pretty much everything that I would want from the RAIDEN FLUX, and it has really made ArcStaff like one of the best supers you can actually run in endgame content now. It's beautiful, and I'm just glad to see the ArcStaff getting some more play now. Now moving on to the subclass, we are on Arc Hunter with of course the ArcStaff Super, because it wouldn't make any sense to have anything else. Now for our class ability, we are going to be on the Gambler's Dodge, since the melee ability is going to be very important to this build. And for the melee ability, we are on them combination blows, baby! Yeah! They're back! It's been a while since we've done a build with combination blows, but here we are again, back on the combinations blows train. And this is basically going to be like our main way that we're going to get most of our super energy. Through combination blows and through making a ridiculous amount of orbs, as well as getting a bunch of energy used for dodging. Now for the grenade, we are going to have the flashbang, and this is going to be for a couple of different reasons. The first one is that it's just a good grenade. You know, it can blind targets, it can stop unstoppables, it does some pretty nice damage. The flashbang itself is just a good grenade, and it has a very low cooldown, so we can actually use it quite often. Now for the aspects, the first one we're going to have is Lethal Current. After we dodge, our next melee attack will have increased range, and also will jolt the target and create damaging aftershocks. And if we damage any jolted targets with our melee, it just blinds them. So it's another way of blinding things, which is, I'm going to get into that a little bit later, and why we have so many things that blind. So it essentially just supercharges our melees, giving us that extra range, as well as being able to jolt things, giving us a bit of extra ad clear. And for the second aspect, we are going to be on flow state whenever we defeat some jolted targets. That's going to make us amplified, and when we're amplified, we get some damage resistance for our dodge. We get faster regen on our class ability, and then we also get some extra reload speed. And then we also get some extra reload speed on our weapons, so that's going to be pretty nice. This is essentially going to keep us just constantly amplified, and that extra damage resistance for dodging, especially since we're going to be doing it a lot, is going to be very nice for keeping us alive in like groups of enemies. Now for the fragments, the first one's going to be the Spark of Resistance. We're going to be pretty close range with this build, so we definitely want as much damage resistance as we can get, and the Spark Resistance is just like perfect for that. We get 25% damage resistance whenever we're surrounded, and since that's going to be most of the time, this thing is always going to be on. After that, we have the Spark of Amplitude, which is going to give us just another quick way of making some more power. Whenever we get some multi-kills, we'll amplified, we'll make some more power, and since we're always going to be amplified, we're always going to be making more orbs. And that's going to help us get our super, get our abilities, keep us alive. The orbs are going to be very important to the build, so we want to make as many orbs as we can. After that, we're going to have the Spark of Beacons. The Spark of Beacons makes its return once again. And this is going to be just another way that we're going to be able to blind targets whenever we get some kills with our special weapon or with our heavy weapon. And the final fragment is going to be the Spark of Feedback. Taking damage bravely increases your outgoing melee damage. So if somebody dares to smack us in PvE, we're going to smack them back even harder, possibly just killing them. And now, before we move on to like some of those fragments and like some of the other weapons that you want to run with this build, I want to talk about why we have so much blind if we're really just going to be doing combinations blows. So the reason for all these blinds is not only to take advantage of our compounding, like I'm sure a lot of you guys probably are thinking, but also to make it easier to actually get those combination blows going on some of the harder content. Now combinations blow, when it's stacked up to 3, it's pretty much great in every like single part of the game. You do tons of damage, you pretty much one-shot any ads, but it does take a little bit to get there. And in some of the harder content like GMs, it is a little bit harder to get through those first, like, I would say 2 stacks of combinations blow. The first one when you don't have any stacks, and when you have 1 stack because you still don't do a lot of damage. But once you get to like 2 or 3, then it gets much easier to like keep it going. But the problem is getting started with those combination blows, so that's where the blind comes in. No matter how many times you're gonna melee something, when they can't fight back and they're blinded, it's just much easier to stack combination blows. So if you throw this into a group of enemies, like a grenade, or just hit them with your heavy or special because they're amplified and blind targets, you can quickly go in there, stack up with combination blows, and basically whenever you actually have to fight enemies that are fighting back, you already have your combination blows stacked up, making all those orbs and getting a ton of super energy while being able to like pretty much 1-shot or 2-shot most of the enemies you find yourself against. So well, that's the reason that I have all the blinds on this build. Blinds just by themselves are still just gonna be really good. Like they're still just good to have in like endgame content or pretty much any content. They make everything just so much easier. Now for your main special weapon, most of the time you're just kind of stuck with the Indebted Kindness that Banshee gave us earlier this week. It is just so good. It's got bolt shot, it's got loose change. It is just a really good sidearm. So if you got this earlier this week, then you could definitely run it with this build. And then for your heavy weapon, any arc machine will pretty much do. Now for our artifact, we're going to have authorized mods melee, since we are going to have a lot of different melee mods, and this is just going to make them cheaper. Emergency flare, this is going to add a little bit more to survivability, making emergency reinforcements not consume our armor charge. The thick of it's also going to be really good. For most of the time, we're going to be like in the middle of like a bunch of enemies, always surrounded, so whenever we get some kills, we get some armor charge. Trace Evidence and Retinal Burn are both going to be pretty good. We are really going to be using some arc weapons, and these most of the time are going to proc with our machine gun. These two up here are going to be also really good. Total Carnage and Debilitating Wave. Debilitating Wave is going to do like a bit more damage wherever you finish an enemy, and then Total Carnage will give us some damage distance whenever we finish a big enemy. And then lastly, of course, it has to be our compounding. We're going to be blinding a lot of targets already, so might as well use our compounding and do even more arc damage, especially since it's also going to affect our combinations blows, so it's also going to help us get that going a little bit faster since we can kill things just a little bit easier. Of course, we gotta take a look at the mods that we're running on this build. And first of all, for the helmet, we have Arc Siphon, because we are gonna end up getting some kills with our arc weapons. Then we also have 2 hands-on mods, so we can get some extra super energy from basically every melee kill. After that, we're gonna have 3 heavy-handeds, this so we can pretty much spawn orbs every single kill. Having 3 heavy-hand mods just essentially removes the cooldown in between being able to make orbs. For our chest piece, we're gonna have Concussive Dampener, plus Harmonic Resistance, as well as Emergency Reinforcements to give us a bit more survivability. And since Emergency Reinforcements is like the only mod that we're using that requires armor charge, we're basically always gonna have this ready to go. Especially with all the orbs we're making, this thing is always ready to go whenever we need it. Now for our boots, we're gonna have just the usual Restoration, Absolution, Recuperation. Not that really change here, we don't really need anything specific. We're not really using our weapons too much, so we don't really need like a scavenger or anything like that. And we definitely don't need more armor charge than we're already getting. And lastly, for the class item, we're gonna have Bomber, Distribution, as well as Powerful Attraction. I actually had like double distribution for a little bit, but I ended up going with Powerful Attraction. It just makes it so much easier picking up all those orbs that we're making, and we just pick them up with a dodge. And then we still get to take advantage of Distribution, which reduces all our ability cooldowns as well as our super, and also Bomber, so we can spam our grenade a little bit more, and so we can always have it whenever we need it. Like I said, the blind is mostly just gonna be needed at the beginning. Once the build gets going, then we don't no longer need the blind. Once the build gets going, then we don't really need the blind, but just for whenever we're starting with those combination blows, we always want to have something to start it. Either our weapons to blind or a grenade. And with that, that's actually going to be everything on the build. Now you guys have pretty much everything that you guys need to know to make this build work. Now the gameplay loop for this build is going to be pretty simple, but it is going to vary a bit in the type of like activity that you're playing. If you're playing in like a lower end activity or a medium, I guess, difficulty activity, just something that's not GMs or where you are like a level disadvantage, then you can pretty much just run in there and start meleeing things. Just melee as many things as you can. It's basically just normal combinations blow gameplay, essentially. You melee something, dodge, melee something, dodge, and you pretty much just do that till you get your super. You're gonna be getting tons of like orbs and super energy while getting those kills, so you're actually gonna be getting the super back really easily and quite fast. Now, if you're doing this on something like a GM or something like that, then you definitely want to lead in with either a blinding grenade on a group of ads, so you can like build up combination blows on them, or if you don't have a grenade, you want to make sure that you get a kill with your special or your heavy weapon first, and then start hitting those groups of ads. Like I said, the first 2 kills I think are gonna be like the toughest ones to get combination blows going, but once you get it going, then everything just becomes much easier. The biggest problem comes in when there's not a lot of ads around and you're gonna essentially have to restart that process again. Also make sure that you take advantage of your outbreak whenever you see a bigger enemy or a champion, because every champion or big enemy pretty much guarantees that you get a super. So make sure you use it to get your supers back faster, and also spam your super as soon as you have it. You don't really want to hold on to it for too long. You pretty much just want to use it as soon as you see an opportunity, because that's like the whole point of this build. The whole reason that we're doing all this is so we can spam those supers, so make sure that you spam them. Especially if you know coming up is like a big area with a lot of ads or bigger enemies, that's where the ArcStaff just goes so hard. It is such an amazing super for those types of areas. It is fantastic. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy the build. Hopefully you guys like it. Thank you all for stopping by. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments below. And like always, there will be a dim link in the comments as well as in the description. I'll make sure to pin the comment so you guys can easily find it, because sometimes whenever I don't pin it, it just disappears off the comments. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because it has a link or something like that. But I'll make sure to pin it so it doesn't go anywhere. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the build. Hopefully you guys liked it. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.